face saying that this is what I want you to look at. And this is the channel between high art and low art. This is what I want you to look at, these bright, bright colors, this highly consumable culture that we live in. I mean, Andy was ahead of his time in a lot of ways. He was also very obsessed with the idea of celebrity, which I think wasn't really as strong as it is now in our culture, where celebrities are really put on a pedestal by young people, and we need to know so much information about the celebrities, like reality TV, to a degree that I think is abnormal and unhealthy. And Andy was in this sort of circle of celebrity himself in New York City. In February of '87, oops, let me go around. Andy developed a pain in his right side, and he went to the hospital for a simple gallbladder procedure. And to everyone's surprise, he died unexpectedly of a heart attack in the hospital the next morning, unrelated to the surgery. Andy had helped dissuade Jean-Michel from his drug use, but when Andy died, not only did Jean-Michel lack his positive influence, but Jean-Michel also became extremely depressed, dealing with the death of his close friend. And that was in February of 1987. I'll just back up one slide because I think I coasted over this. This is an example of Basquiat's work. And although he was cultured, he was not educated, he did, through his artwork, have heavy symbolism from his roots of Haiti and African roots. You can see that these almost look like African masks, some of them, and he juxtaposes a lot of color and imagery and symbols. I mean, I could have a lecture just on that, I'm sure. But what he's trying to do is, in a very quick moment, splash down a lot of information to get the viewer thinking. And so this is just a slide of a lot of his work, just to kind of give you an idea. And this was a lot of street work, so it's not available, a lot of times on canvas like it would be for traditional fine artists. Some of this, like for instance, one was on a door that he did, and somebody kept asking the landlord if they could purchase the door, and the landlord had no clue why are people trying to purchase this door? And one day the door was stolen. And nobody knows whatever happened to that door. Maybe it was sold underground to other art dealers. But that's just an example of like how popular Basquiat had become. He was broke, homeless, and suddenly came into vast amounts of money in his short life. However, his fast rise to fame provided him problems, many of which was just his own self-destructive personality. This fueled a more extravagant lifestyle and harder partying. He believed that people were only his friends in order to take advantage of him, which caused some paranoia. After Andy's death, he became quite reclusive and spent many days and nights in his downtown loft, producing many paintings and using more heroin. He took a short trip to Maui, Hawaii, where he thought he could go cold turkey by escaping his problems, and tried to get away from these bad influences. And most of his friends believed that he, like many relapsing addicts, had lost his tolerance, turning, when he came back, his customary dose lethal. He was skinny and had open sores and swollen pimples on his face when he died. He was only 27 years old. He died alone from a drug overdose in his apartment in August of 1988. He's interned at a cemetery in Brooklyn. After his death, Keith Haring did this tribute, which is a pile of crowns. A crown appears frequently, as I said, in the early work of Jean-Michel, signaling his ambition and understanding of art history. Basquiat was ambitious and out to become the king of his path. Again, I'm referencing that Rolling Stone interview with Keith Haring, Was it a shock to you when Jean-Michel overdosed on heroin last summer? Quote, the last few years his friends were really scared for him. He was really playing with death, pushing it to the extreme, but there was no point in telling him. He knew what he was doing. He knew what the risks were. He had friends that had died. His friends could only hope that it wasn't going to happen, but it wasn't not a surprise to anyone that he died. Keith Haring, his drawings were quite simple. Pyramids, flying saucers, human figures, winged figures, television sets, animals, and babies. Soon the baby with rays all around it became kind of a signature, and people in New York who rode the subways began recognizing these drawings, although they had no idea who made them. So Keith's career was really on an upwards trajectory. He, as I said, he was active in the, in the gay community as far as his activity, and he, although you would think that he might know better, it was the beginning of the 1980s, and perhaps it should have been communicated more clearly how important it was to protect yourself. During the 1980s, homosexuality was still a hush-hush topic in Keith's family. In fact, he never fully came out to his parents, although everyone understood the situation. They all referred to Keith's boyfriends as his bodyguards. The conservative nature of his family and the nation as a whole created a pressure-boiling situation for Keith Haring, who was a highly sexualized person. That energy came out in his art as well as in the clubs. In the LGBT community in New York City, you will find that Keith Haring had a large mural painted in there. It was black and white, white walls with black, similar to this, and it was floor to ceiling. Not far from 163 Mercer Street, Haring opened a pop shop, and this particular store sold magnets, t-shirts, toys, posters, and more. So the reason I bring this up is because his pop shop, which is on the left, I do remember this. This was 1986. I was 10 years old. And it had everyday pop culture images and like that you could relate to. You could relate to the animals, to the people, to the dog that he drew, on everyday objects. So it was his way, he kind of piggybacked on Warhol. It was his way of bringing art to the masses. And that was part of his philosophy. And for a young guy, I think it's pretty amazing, making art accessible to everyone. And although it did receive criticism from much of the art world, the pop shop garnered great support from the likes of Andy Warhol. And today the pop shop, so the storefront closed in 2005, and today the pop shop only operates online, and it's operated by the Keith Haring Foundation. On the left is Keith Haring and Madonna, who had a strong friendship, and on the right is an example of the radiating baby, which became sort of his signature. We were two odd birds in the same environment, remember Madonna. I watched Keith come up from the street base, which is where I came from. I've always responded to Keith's art from the very beginning. There was a lot of innocence and a joy there that was coupled with a brutal awareness of the world. The fact is, there's a lot of irony in Keith's work, just as there's a lot of irony in my work and lyrics. And that's what attracts me to his stuff. I mean, you have these bold colors, these childlike figures, and I mean a lot of babies. But if you really look at those works closely, they're really, really powerful. Madonna, so this is after Keith had passed away, Madonna has toured, and this was the backdrop to her Sticky and Sweet tour in 2008. So you can see it's fun, and it's all Keith Haring's work. So that's kind of a fun little side story that she did wind up using his artwork in one of her shows, and her, I believe it was all of the ticket profit for one of her shows after Keith had passed away was all donated into his foundation. So that was pretty generous of Madonna. Let me go back to that slide. Let's see, present. Okay, and here's an example of these two guys again. I know I'm kind of circling around here. Many of these influential celebrities came together for Keith's 26th birthday party with Andy in attendance, and a year later in Madonna married Sean Penn, and a star-studded wedding, and as Keith Haring's +1, he brought Andy Warhol. So I never knew that, but Andy Warhol was at Madonna's wedding, and so was Keith Haring. That's pretty cool. But Basquiat was not. He was the ex-boyfriend. He was not invited. So my father was a city planner in New York, and I know he worked under Mayor Koch. And you might remember Mayor Koch. You know, I know this is Texas, but you might remember him from, you know, the show that I'm going to say? Anybody remember him? He was a judge on the show, The People's Court, believe it or not. Yeah. Dun, 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 you know, and he was he's a crazy guy. He's funny in a lot of ways. He was a politician in New York City, and he became